Hi, in this brief talk we will present our KaiPlay paper I don't care as long as it's good, player preferences for real-time and turn-based combat systems in computer RPGs. Role-playing games have slowly evolved into an immensely popular genre of computer games. This genre is often blurry and incredibly diverse, ranging from Final Fantasy to The Witcher and Dark Souls. A key part of almost any computer role-playing game is its combat system, the mechanisms and interfaces through which the players do battle against their adversaries. Players typically spend a great deal of their playtime engaged in battles or getting prepared for one. Perhaps the clearest characteristic of any combat system is whether it plays in real time or employs a turn-based system or something in between. In turn-based systems, combatants take turns performing actions, and in real-time combat systems, all combatants act simultaneously according to their abilities. There are also some hybrid combat systems, for example those that play real-time by default but contain a paused tactical mode for issuing commands. Combat systems are a constant center of attention among gamers. In developer communities, questions about players' preferences regarding combat systems pop up frequently. In gaming communities, players discuss and analyze the combat mechanics of recent and upcoming RPGs extensively. A quick internet search reveals a plethora of articles, polls, and discussions surrounding this topic. In games media, combat systems are often handled in dramatic fashion. For example, the highly anticipated Baldur's Gate 3 made headlines when the developers announced that the game would employ a fully turn-based combat system, a deviation from the franchise's earlier installments. Based on these online articles and discussions, one might be quick to assume that players of computer RPGs are highly opinionated about combat systems. However, we lack a systematic investigation into the combat system preferences of players, as well as into the fundamental reasons behind these preferences. To this end, we conducted an analysis of online discussions. Our main research questions were: how strongly are gamers divided in their preferences regarding combat systems? And what are the perceived strengths and weaknesses of different combat systems? We first collected posts from suitable discussion threads. We specifically looked for online discussions about preferences between different types of combat in computer RPGs. We did not include discussion threads that were about a specific game or series, rather we focused on broader discussions. This way we collected 546 posts from 17 discussion threads. To begin our work, we analyzed the data to identify which combat styles were commonly discussed or perceived by players. In addition to our starting points with real-time and turn-based systems, we identified real-time with pause systems. Real-time with pause refers to combat systems where the action is real-time by default, but can be paused to enter a more tactical mode to issue commands and analyze the situation. It is worth noting that the perceptions of combat styles are not necessarily very unified among players. Especially regarding real-time with pause, many players seem to group such systems either with turn-based or real-time systems, depending on the game. Still, it appeared frequently in the discussions, so that the distinction is clearly important to a significant segment of players. For a more detailed analysis of these different combat styles, please refer to our paper. With respect to these main combat styles, we conducted 3 rounds of analysis. First, we evaluated combat style preferences. We grouped responses based on their stated preferences, their strength, and their potential openness towards other combat styles beyond their primary preferences. Second, we identified commonly perceived positive and negative characteristics of different combat styles. And third, we identified games and game series that were mentioned positively in the discussions. Here we briefly summarize our main findings. First, players tend to discuss combat styles in broad categories. Our analysis suggested 3 main combat styles: real-time, turn-based, and real-time with pause. However, there are no commonly established categories, and perceptions about combat styles may vary. Real-time with pause was less common, but nonetheless an important and distinct style to many players. Second, while most players do have a preference for one type of combat, they are still largely open to other styles of combat. 58.1% of responses were open to all combat styles with or without a primary preference. Only 25.5% expressed strong opinions, with one primary preference and no expressed openness towards any other combat style. We believe that the number of players being open about combat styles could be even higher, After all, our data came from discussions where players were specifically asked to choose one over the others. Third, all combat styles have unique strengths and weaknesses. This is likely the explaining factor for why players seem open about combat styles. Different styles cater to different needs and experiences. Preferences seem to link to a number of other qualities, most importantly to whether or not the system contains a single controlled character or a party. Real-time combat is generally seen as more suitable for single-character gameplay, whereas turn-based and real-time with pause are more ideal for party-based games. Overall, our results help designers understand their target group and their preferences and identify potential pitfalls in their combat systems. This concludes our presentation. For more details, please check out our paper.